Welcome back, and in this video we're finally going to be putting back the engine into this car, which is going to be very exciting. And in the last video we did a lot of prep work on this entire car. The main thing that we did is on this chassis leg, we did all the seam sealer on this entire car and also painted this entire chassis leg, which looks really good. And we also did some couple other things. For example, on the fender we worked a little bit, and then we also did a little bit of prep work on the engine itself because there were a couple components that were broken and that we had to swap out. And we also threw the subframe under the engine. That just makes life a little bit easier when we put this engine back in. But before we actually get to putting this engine in, we have a couple of things that we still need to do before we actually can start by putting this engine in. For example, like those cables down there, we still need to put these all the way up here because we can't reach them when the engine is in here, and a couple of heat shields that go back here. So just a couple of things that we need to do. This entire corner, as you can see, looks very empty and there's not really a lot in there. We are going to start in there too. In this video we'll see how far we'll go, but the main priority is to get this engine in. And a quick recap on what we did in the last video to this engine, because there were a couple of things that we need to swap out because they were broken from the crash. And the first thing which we did is this engine mount bracket down here, because it was kind of snapped off right here where the bolt goes in, but we swapped that out. And we had to swap out this pressure sensor right here because it was cracked right here, and that is just a pressure sensor for the boost, which is in the inlet manifold. Then one other thing that we also had to do is this coolant reservoir up here, because the old one had a little crack up here, and that was also a quick fix. And then as you can see, we threw the entire subframe under here. We put the entire roll bar under here and also the entire steering rack. It's going to be a little bit hard to balance the entire subframe out because the subframe is just hanging, or right now sitting, but when we put the engine up and everything to get into the car, it's going to be hanging, and that's going to be a little bit difficult because the engine mounts are just kind of made to sit because the engine sits on it and not that the subframe hangs on it or whatever. And the subframe definitely weighs a decent amount, so that's going to be very interesting to see on how we get this done. But let's get started. We're going to start off with this wiring harness right here, which feeds through this hole right here and supplies power to the entire front of the car and the engine. It runs all the way from the trunk, from the battery, all the way to the front. This is the first thing which we're going to do, and then after that we're going to continue with this wiring harness. But before we do this, we're going to head to the trunk real quick and double check it that the negative is actually disconnected from the battery. And here you can see, just to double check, that the negative is definitely off, and this just connects the chassis kind of, and we can see that the positive is on. If the negative would still be on, that means that if we make contact with the chassis with those positive wires which we have in the front, we would have a complete shortage. So now let's get going with this wiring harness. As we always say, our number one rule is to put all the screws and nuts back where they came from. For example, all of these plastic nuts right here is what holds this wiring harness on. We put all these back, so first step is to take everything off. Again, since life is a learning curve, we switch these up and we notice that this one actually has to go behind this one. So it's just going to be easier to take these 3 screws off again and put this one behind it. And now we can connect these 2 ends to the power supply up here. And since we're already on this side, we can continue with this wiring harness right here. This runs all the way to the front, and here's another power supply which runs into this little box. So as you guys just saw, there was a small spark when I had contact to these, and we forgot one thing, that the car has a second battery up here, and we never checked that and never disconnected it. So what we're going to do now, since we don't want any power on the car so far, we're going to disconnect it all the way back there, and then we can put these connectors back on. Now as you can see, there's no more sparks, and we can throw these back on. And for the same harness that we disconnected on the other side, there's one ground wire here, and that's the main reason why we disconnected the battery in the back of the ground wire. So that's an open circuit and there can be no power running through the entire car, and that's the exact same thing which we did on the top. And And now we have the last and final harness right here to get everything out of the way. This just has 2 screws and then the rest is kind of just clipped in. And yeah, let's get started. What we also use to help us through this entire process a little bit is the old chassis leg, because that had all of the screws and everything that we also needed on that side. For example, we still had to take off these 2. I'm not too sure right now what they actually were for again. And also these grommet things right here, these are not reusable, but we have new ones, so we can also pop those in the new chassis leg. But before that, I'm gonna take these screws out, and then we can also finally throw this old chassis leg away. And now the last thing we need to install to be able to start on the engine is this heat shield, which goes on the back and only has 8 of these nuts. Now we finally have everything done to now work on the engine, and we are missing a couple parts, but we can do that after the engine is installed. For example, also this heat shield down here for this exhaust. We ordered one, but it was the wrong one. It was the one for the left side, not the one for the right side. So we're ordering a new one, but we can do that after the engine is inside, so that's not a problem. And one more thing which we're going to be doing is cavity conservation wax. It's just going to be to prevent any rust, which we're going to be spraying into the entire chassis leg, just any cavities in general which are hard to reach, to prevent anything and to not have any more problems. And now we're gonna work on the engine. Before we head on to the engine, we have a couple of small parts that we just have laying around that we also still need to throw on the chassis leg and everything. For example, this little box where just the connectors go inside, and these that hold different parts of the ECU box and stuff like that. And the last part is this little filter box that allows all the water that is on top and everything that goes down the glass and stuff like that to flow down underneath the batteries. And now that we're done with the old chassis legs, we can throw them away. So now it's finally time to put this engine in. We'll try our best and we hope it works. And here's our new coworker who just clocked in, and he's a little bit camera shy. So quick little update while I was putting the engine in. It is in its right position. It was a bit of a struggle to get it there actually, but we did manage to get it completely straight in and got these bolts in for the subframe on the front, and the same thing on the other side. So it's up in the front and also in the back. So next up is going to be the other 6 bolts for the subframe, and then after that we can probably move on to the other bolts that hold up the entire gearbox. So what I'm going to be doing now to create us a little bit more room here is to connect this wishbone to the subframe itself, so that we have a little bit more room. We can remove this here, and yeah, that's what I'm doing now. And back here, as you just saw, there are 6 screws, 3 short ones and 3 long ones that hold this entire support, kind of that holds the entire gearbox up right here. And I already tightened 4 of them, and I couldn't reach these 2 because of the jack, which was in the way. But now I can reach it. Super happy that I finally got all of these in. And let's get to tightening. And next up is the ground wire for the gearbox, which just attaches right here. So now we finally got all of the main bolts that we need in place and tightened. We don't have it tightened to the torque spec just yet, just hand tightened and everything, but should be enough. We think as of right now, we double checked everything and went through everything. Everything should be good, and we should be able to take everything off now, and the engine should be sitting completely fine now. So that's what we're gonna start off doing now, and hopefully everything goes well. And I think right now is a good time to like and subscribe if you enjoy it, and let's continue. So that's a huge relief that we finally have this engine in, and that there was absolutely 0 problems. We had a couple issues of getting it in, and that it sometimes got hooked, but we didn't break anything, and everything I would say went pretty flawless. Yeah, super happy that we finally got it in. The video's not over yet. We still have a lot to do. We're gonna work on it tomorrow, and yeah. It's the next day, and as you just saw, we finally got this engine in, which was a huge step, and I'm glad that we finally got it in. We got this engine in, and all the screws that hold everything together with the entire engine and subframe, we only hand tighten them, so that's going to be one step that we're going to be doing, is to torque everything down. For example, engine mount, the entire subframe, the anterior roll bar, and all kind of stuff like that. So we have a lot of screws that we have to torque down because they all come with a torque spec. So that's going to be one big step. And then also the next thing is going to be the cavity conservation, which I talked about before. And it kind of just prevents any corrosion or rust inside of stuff like here where you can't reach it, or the paint can't reach it when you paint stuff like this, because this chassis leg is from the structural cut. So we just want to protect everything from rust and stuff like that, from stuff that we touched, even the back chassis where it is steel. So it kind of just goes in there, sprays everything, and we're going to go in there with the camera to kind of show to you guys what it looks like before. Here's also the nozzle which we're going to be using, and it doesn't just spray it on the front. There's like little holes on the sides which just sprays it completely around. That's probably going to be a easy step, but also a good step. You can never use too much, but we're going to get started with the torques. And we have an electrical torque wrench, which we have never had before, because before we had a mechanical one, so this is also new. So now we just got all these screws done for the subframe, but always go back in your head and rewind and see what kind of screws you touched, and always double check everything so that you definitely don't have any problems in the future. And one example is these kind of holders right here, which you can see right here, is not connected to the chassis itself. It is on the top, the screw which sits on the outside up here, but this bracket or the holder right here is also attached to the subframe, but not welded or anything. It has a screw down here, and these were a little bit loose, so always double check everything so that you don't run into any future problems. And next up, we're going to do the engine mounts, because we didn't do these bottom ones, which attach the engine mount to the subframe, and each engine mount has 3 screws. Next, we're going to do these 6 screws on this transmission crossmember bracket. And now the last things which we need to torque down are these pieces in the front, for example, the steering rack and also the anti-roll bar right here. So these are what we're going to do next. And before we move on to the anti-roll bar right here, we saw this plug right here, which is from the anti-roll bar, and the other plug right here. So we're thinking that we just already connect these, and the same with this plug. This goes all the way through to the other side, because we need to clean this side up a little bit, because we are also going to start on the suspension. Sorry if I installing this in this video. We'll see how far we'll get with this. But first I'm going to start with this plug, which also gets screwed onto the chassis leg right here. And now we can move on to the interior roll bar. What we're gonna do now, because what we didn't do first is completely tighten it, because it is movable and everything, because it is the interior roll bar. And this one is the electronic one, because as you just saw, we also put the plug in there. This one is the electronic one, which can move. So we weren't really sure if it has like a reference point where we have to put in everything. So we weren't really sure on that and how we should continue on that. But we kind of just went to it with a logical point of view, and are now just gonna put in the drop links, which attach right here to the entire knuckle right here, and then put it to the height of where the drop link ends and tighten those up. Also do the other side, and that's also where we're going to continue after to put all the suspension in, because obviously we don't have anything on that side. So drop link into this, build up the other suspension side and add the drop link, and then we can tighten down the interior roll bar. And to reach this nut of the interior roll bar, I'm just gonna hang up this tie rod from the steering rack up to here, just loosely so it's out of the way. We can now start on this side with the strut, which has 3 screws on the top. So now we can continue with the knuckle and everything, and this thing definitely weighs a lot, so my dad's gonna pick it up, and then I'm gonna connect this bottom to right here, and then it should be in the air a little bit, and then we can continue on the top. So to connect the top, we have to push it up a little bit, so it's just easier to put the jack underneath and to pump it up. And after putting everything back, I just looked at it and realized that the brake caliper also obviously has to go on. And I was looking where the brake line goes, and I noticed that the holders are right here, which goes to the front, and right now it's behind it, which would mean that we had to kind of put it right between everything, and it's really tight. So what we're gonna do now is just take the back bolt out, which connects it to the subframe, swing it down, push the caliper through, and then put it back together. And now the exact same thing like on the other side, just to create a little bit more room, I'm gonna put this wishbone up here and also this tie rod just to create a little bit more space when I put this drop link in. And now we can also finally add the drop link. And now that we have everything in place, we haven't tightened everything yet. That's what we're gonna do now, because we have everything in place. And one thing we're just gonna have to take off after, because we're not done here yet, we are gonna have to take off the tie rod, because we need to put the drive shaft up here, because it is an all-wheel drive and we don't have it in yet. So this is just to put everything together, and we're gonna do that after. So now we're gonna get to tightening. So since we already did that one cord, which was for the wheel speed sensor, we're just gonna get a couple of parts away. For example, like these small parts, which is the height sensor, which we took off, which sits right up here. So we're gonna also add this one. So we sadly just did it again. We just noticed after putting it together that the brake caliper down here is still stuck, because as I said, the brake line has to go all the way up here, which would mean that we had to fit the entire brake caliper through this entire small space, which definitely wouldn't work. So we're gonna have to take this entire wishbone out again, which wasn't the easiest to get in. So we're gonna have to take this one out again, get the brake caliper to the front, and then put it back. Now we can move on and tighten everything. And since we already have the brake caliper here, already everything set up, we're just gonna hook it on, because it's just 2 screws. And all of these nuts and bolts also have specific torque specs, and we're just going to tighten everything and also do the torque specs for each and single one of them. Same story on the other side, connect everything and also torque everything down. So now we have everything tightened down into its correct spec. We saw this bracket right here and we thought that we should just already pop it in, because why not? Because it's just hanging here and it's just 3 screws. So now after all of those steps, after putting everything in, we can now finally tighten down the anti-roll bar, which is why we put everything in so that it sits where it's supposed to sit, and it's connected with 4 screws, so that's what I'm gonna do now. So we finally got everything tightened down and looks really good, and it's starting to come together very well. Super excited of how it looks so far. One tip to give you guys if you're ever in this type of situation, to always double and triple check everything to make sure that there's no more damaged parts in some hidden corners. For example, down here, what we just found on this hose is a couple of marks and damages on here. If we wouldn't have looked at it, we definitely wouldn't have found it. So that's always a good thing to do. Always double check everything. And one thing that we also almost forgot to do is to tighten these bolts for the strut up here. So that's also something that we're gonna do real quick. There's one more thing which we wanted to do, which is the cavity conservation, and this is the last thing which we're going to be doing now. And we're going to hold a camera into there so you can actually see what it looks like from the inside and to give you guys a better idea. So we're going to put it back here in this hole. Here you can see on the camera what it looks like, and you can already see up there in that corner kind of where it's a little bit lighter, that can be the steel when we touched it with the wheel brush. So we're going to cover everything inside of here because we don't want anything like this that's open, just to be sure, and just to be sure if there's any other points. So we're going to hit it with the cavity conservation. And with stuff like this, you don't really want to be very gentle with it. Just put a lot, because more is better than not putting enough. So yeah, now we finally have this done. We got a lot done today. We finally got this entire engine in, which was a huge step. Was not the easiest to get in, but we finally got it. And then we also got this entire corner with the suspension and everything inside, which is also straight and matches up to the other side. That looks really, really good. And looking at it now and what it looked like before is a complete change. So, and it starts to look like a car more and more, which I'm super excited about. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the post notification. Drive safe and stay tuned.